Welcome, y'all. Welcome to Combos with TK, where we have a chit chat with some of the most interesting people in the world who have some interesting stories to tell. And today is no exception. It's gonna be an interesting one. Now, I feel like when I use interesting way too much. However, this a learning experience for us all. So she's a certified astrologer. She's been doing this for 15 years. Please welcome Tamerri Ater-Ntonni. How are you doing?
Yay! Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here, TK.
I am super excited to have you here. So for you guys who follow me or don't follow me, I'm on several shows. And one of the other shows I'm on is Black Queens Uncut, and we've had Tamerri on talking about astrology and all that good stuff. And for you guys who know me, like I ride Leo. That sounded weird. I'm a Leo all the time. I say it all the time. I represent it like if you know me like that. But for people who don't know me, I'm a Leo, and that's like all I know. However, on the other show, we talk about rising moons and setting suns and all this other stuff. And really, what I wanted to bring Tamerri on is I know there's a lot of people who don't believe in astrology or think it's like, there's really nothing to it or it's fake, all these, stereotypes. And I really wanted to kind of educate myself and other folks on one, what it's all about. And then two, like how it can benefit you in your life. So first off, because I want to just bring, people who don't know what they're talking about. Tamerri, tell us how you got into it. Because 15 years is a long time.
Oh, yes. Oh my God. I love this question. I love telling this story. I'll try to give the shortest rendition of it. But basically, astrology has always been a part of my life. My father, I grew up around Egyptologists. My dad is a scholar of African history. My name, Tamerri, means gift of the Nile. It's Egyptian. And so when I was born, he had a naming ceremony for me. And one of his best friends is a spiritual practitioner. He did a natal chart reading as an infant. And so growing up, it was one of those things that he always, I know she's like, wait a
Wait,
minute.
wait, 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 wait. We're gonna have to let's do the bite size. A
Yeah.
naming ceremony. Okay, so
Yes.
let's start there. What is that?
Yeah. So naming ceremonies, they're very popular in a lot of, African traditional religions. And so for my dad, it was really important to set the tone. It's basically where you present the baby's name, you talk about their destiny, what they're here to do.
Mm,
And so the funny thing is that my dad's friend that did it, he doesn't always use natal chart readings when he does them, but for some reason he did for me. And so a big part of the ceremony was talking about, I was born under the sign of Taurus and I'm an earth sign, and what colors they should put me in, like stay away from red. It was all these little things that like
wow.
throughout my life. I know it sounds kind of funny thinking back, but like I never wore red because that was one of the colors that was said wasn't good for me based on my chart and some of the energy that he had seen, I guess, around my aura or whatever. And so I carried that throughout my life. And so um I grew up in a very non-traditional household. Like my dad wanted us to know about all religions, and it was very spiritual. We poured libation and there was a lot of tradition. And tragically, when I was 13, my mother took her life, and that was one
Yeah.
like a very big turning point in my family's, obviously for our family. And it was something that I was just got into high school. I had to deal with
Right.
this big trauma and I shut down, and I meaning that I didn't talk about it. I never went to therapy. I just smiled. I went and got really active in school, made all these friends, and I smiled every day, even though I had a lot of pain, very deep. And so it was one of those things that I was very like, I would say I had a really good childhood. I had a really good high school experience. I was always very, social, but I was very sad on the inside. And I don't think, and no one really knew. I was really good at hiding it. And
Right.
so fast forward through college and when I graduated, and my boyfriend at the time, I had a boyfriend that I had started dating in college, and we were long distance, but he would help. He was like recommending things that I do to kind of work on these things. So I would obviously confide in him. And I was working my first job here in LA, and one of the managers of the Astro twins, they're astrologers, they're twins and they're astrologers, which is super cute. And they write for, like, I think they write for Elle still. They're very well known in the astrological community, and they're pretty
Hmm.
commercial for astrologers. So they walked in, and I was like, oh, I love astrology, like do a reading for me. And so they did. And they looked at me and they said, you're either a Taurus or a Scorpio. And I'm like, well, I'm a Taurus. Like, where's the Scorpio coming from? And I didn't know about my natal chart at that time, even though I had this
Hmm.
reading when I was a baby. I was a baby, so I didn't know what's going on.
Right.
And I'm a Scorpio. I'm a Scorpio rising, and so basically, your rising sign or your ascendant, the sign that it was ascending on the eastern horizon at your birth, is like your outer persona. It's like the way you look. It's how you come across to people. So they were able to look at me and pick up on the two of the most important signs in my chart. And so when
Right.
they did that, I was like, I need to learn how to do that. Like, like, what is, like, how? So I started studying. I like bought my first astrology book. I still have it on my bookshelf, cover to cover. I learned about charts. It was just a hobby for a while. I started taking, classes, and it was something I did for free for about 10 years. So I would, do, friends, family, people that I would meet out in my office, because I also work in the beauty industry and product development. I would be doing readings and card readings because I've always been into like mystical things. And
Right.
my boyfriend, the same one, was like, "Why are you doing it, Capricorn?" He's like, "You need to get paid for this." Like, and I didn't, it took me a while to actually be like, okay, I should charge for this. And even after we broke up, I finally launched, AstroFashionista. He came up with the name too, so shout out to him. Um, shout out
Time
to
and
my booze.
season.
Yeah, shout out to my booze along the way that helped me, and now my husband supports me. But yeah, my the boyfriend after him designed my first website. So it's one of those things. I know, right? So be mindful of who you date. They should be supporting you. You should be supporting them. So yeah, that's kind of the long short journey. But it's something that I'm really passionate about. I love helping people. And the reason why I always mention the story about my mom, because I didn't tie that loose, but astrology really helped me understand who I am, why I experienced that. And basically, I'm a healer. And so I had to experience this deep level of pain to help people also going through deep levels of pain. And I find that most of the clients I attract, a lot of them have dealt with some sort of trauma. A lot of them, are searching for a meaning. They're searching for a bigger purpose. Some of them are religious, but they're also looking for, some other explanation of this universe that we live in. And I find like astrology is very good for, self knowledge, getting to know yourself, and really playing up your strengths and downplaying your weaknesses. So that's really kind of the journey of how I got here.
And so how is it considered like a soft science, or what is it considered?
Yeah, I think it's more considered a metaphysical study or the occult. Astrology was actually a very respected, profession back in the ancient times. And so I love the
Hmm.
tie to Egypt because it's all come full circle for me. And I think that is, it's a part of my purpose. And so thinking back to, ancient Egypt, Greece, and if you go throughout history, kings, they all had astrologers on the staff. A lot of priests were astrologers.
Hmm.
And because you had to, it helped you with studying health. It helps you with studying, if there was a war coming. Like, there's all these things that it was used for. A lot of it was health astrology, and just, making sure that the people were good. And
Hmm.
at a time in history, the church separated, and it didn't serve them to have astrology. I mean, it's a long, long story. I'm just kind of giving the brief, just generic overview. But basically, it's one of those things that it kind of separated from the church. But priests were astrologers in
Mm.
a lot of cultures, and so it's definitely something that I understand why people are skeptical of. But also, to me, it makes total sense, because if we're a part of this vast universe and we think about how tiny humans are
Hmm.
in scope of the world, why wouldn't we be affected by, it's nature, right? Because astrology is basically connected to the cycles of nature. And so since we're a part of nature, it makes total sense to me why we would be affected by it. Like, the moon's gravitational pull on Earth is what,
Mm.
creates the
Yeah.
tide in the ocean. And the way the sun rises and sets. That's pretty much all it is. So when you think about it from like a being in touch with nature standpoint, I don't think it's that woo woo. But I definitely think it's more of like a metaphysical science. Astronomers and astrologers are different. I
Hmm.
know there's astrologers and astronomers who are there. I think I've seen an astronomer that is an astrologer, but it's very rare. So they're two
Hmm.
different things in today's world.
So that's kind of like my next question. So do you have to be not have to be, but I find like LA is a very special place.
It is my hometown. Shout out.
Yeah, like and don't get me wrong, I'm not crapping on it at all because I'm here. But like I feel like the way I live here is not how a lot of other people live in other places. Just, to how healthy we are. Like I have a skincare line, and I can do a pop-up at a vegan pop-up pretty much every week. Like
Yeah.
that's a thing in LA.
Mhm.
So, is it because that we're, part of the population is very into like spirituality and health and wellness, and there's that time where they want to know the bigger connections, or or is it a thing that's like not worldwide, but there's a lot of Americans who are into it. Like, has it become like more of a trending thing?
Oh, it's definitely trending now. I feel like we're in an era where astrology is more accepted. When I first started studying, and I'm not even that, old, but like you said, it's over 15 years. It was one of those things that people didn't like. Some people were like into it, horoscopes, but they didn't understand. No one knew what a natal chart was. No one knew what a rising sign was. So I was always constantly explaining these things. Whereas now there's CoStar, there's the pattern, there's all these apps where you can just literally look it up, and we're on the brink of the age of Aquarius. I mean, there's arguments that we're already in it, or if we're on the brink of it, that's a different astrology, different. I don't even want to go there because it's a little complicated, but basically Aquarius is a sign of people and technology and humanitarianism, and it is associated with astrology. That's my moon sign, is in Aquarius. And so we're in a time in history where I think we're in the information age, right? So it's easy for people to kind of Google something and see and learn more about it, which is a great thing. But it's also a time for a lot of frauds and people that just want to
That part.
capitalize on things, to come in and just say, hey, I'm an astrologer, and they haven't done any work, and look, you don't have to be certified to be an astrologer. I did readings for 10 years, a while before I got a certification. I got the certification because I wanted to, position myself as someone that's very serious, and this is a
Right.
study for me. I take it very seriously. But you don't have to be certified. I just, if anyone is interested in astrology, or you like it, just be mindful of who you're going to, and what their credentials are, and what their experience is, and you kind of have to vibe with it, just like you would with a therapist or someone else. Like, you kind of have to see if who you vibe with the best. But I definitely think LA is a place where the weird things are much more accepted. I don't think that it's had an influence on me being an astrologer, to be honest, because it was something that was always, my connection is more to like the African spirituality and that
Right.
ancient part. It just is funny that I am from here, and I met the Astro twins in LA when I worked in Beverly Hills. So I guess in some respects it was good that I live here because it's more accepted. But most of
Yeah.
my clients are global. Like, I do readings for people in the UK because it's always
Okay.
been virtual for me for the most part. Even before the
Hmm.
pandemic, I was doing Zoom. So a lot of them are from LA, but it's New York, big cities for sure. But I people from Idaho or Michigan. Like, I get people from all over, so that's cool.
So, with that being said, is it one of those things where, like, so for instance, like I said, I'm a Leo, and when I tell people that, and the other people, there's just certain signs that I'm just not too keen on, just from previous experiences, right?
Yeah.
And is it more your belief in what the sign tells you, or is it, truly something that's embedded? Because, like, I know a lot of Leos, and
Yeah.
there's a little bit of a spectrum, but there's a definite understanding, when they say, oh, okay, so now and that's the energy I'm picking up. But is
Yeah.
that something that's in your in your mind? Because like,
Oh,
we did our last show on Black Business, like, I don't know about anything else, but I'm a Leo. So
and
is
you be
that
like,
something
Leo
that's
gang.
in? Yeah, that's it. So is that something that's in your mind, or is that something that's inside of you based off of when you were born?
Oh, I love this question because this is a great time for the education piece. Okay, so in traditional astrology, and I'm an astrologer that I use a lot of ancient traditional techniques. There's modern astrology. There's so many different branches of astrology. I mix both, but I'm very, very traditional in my approach. The zodiac sign is not really that important. It's more of an archetype. The planets because basically the components of a birth chart, it's the planets, it's the houses that they're in or that they live in, and it's the signs, the zodiac signs that they're in. So the signs are just archetypes, right? They tell us things about, Leo was a lion, you know what I mean? There's a mythology connected to Leo. It's a fire sign, it's fixed fire. So fixed signs in astrology, they don't like a lot of change, they like things to stay the same.
Wasn't I
And it's
telling you that? I was I was
you
like, I don't.
literally just said that. You before we got on, you literally
Yeah,
were
I was
telling me
like, I
that.
don't.
Yeah. And this is connected to nature. So basically, when we enter into a new season, that those are cardinal signs. So when we start spring, that's when we start Aries season. When we start fall, that's when we start Libra season. The signs in between them explain the nature of the sign. So when we are in summer, we start Cancer. When we get in the midsummer, we're in Leo. We're fixed in the summer. So that's kind of where the fixed connection. And then when we move to Virgo season, it's a mutable sign. We're changing from summer to fall. So it is
Mhm.
connected to nature. But Leo, the mythology behind it, it just gives a backdrop of how the planet will act. So, for instance, Sun in Leo. So you were born when the Sun was in Leo. The Sun is about our expression. It's about our, what we, where we want to shine. It's our general personality. It's our creativity. So the Sun in Leo becomes, it acts a certain way, whereas the Sun in Capricorn, it acts a different way. So the sign just shows how that planet is going to play out. So the planet is actually what's more important in terms of the action. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. So then you also mentioned that, there's different Leos, and yeah, you might be different. Now that can be explained by the birth chart because we all have a different birth chart. It's like
Mm.
it's like a fingerprint. But also within each zodiac sign, there's things called decans, and this was tied to ancient Egypt, the decanates or the decans. And so there's different sub degrees that have different sub rulers. So a Leo that's born at the beginning of Leo season will have some differences in the middle and the end of Leo season because there's
Mm.
sub. It drills down. So there's a little bit of both happening. But one example that I love to give, there's an astrologer, Rick Levine. He said, your zodiac sign is like being from the same state as someone. So if I'm from
Mm.
California, yes, we're going to have similarities because we grew up in California, but everything else might be different. I was born in a different city, on a different street. I went to different schools. And so when you drill
Right.
down, that's more the birth chart. So I love that you asked that question because it kind of gives me a chance to explain how complicated it can get.
Okay. All right. Yeah. That because I literally met a lady 2 days ago, and she was very aggressive. Not in a negative way, but it was just kind of like, why are you asking? She was another vendor. I was at a pop up, and then she's like, "What sign are you?" Because I
Okay.
actually on my pop ups I always wear a lion on my. There's a
Hmm.
lion on my table, and there's a lion. I have a lion necklace, and I'm like, she's like, "Are you a Leo?" I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "I am too. When were you born?" So she was born on the 2nd, and
Of
that's when it made a
August.
lot of sense of August, and I'm born on the 3rd. That was like, oh,
Oh.
now I feel why now because I was like, you're coming off very aggressive. I was like, dang, is this how people feel when I approach them? Because I hear that a lot. So it makes a lot of sense. Um, so now, is it appropriate to, when I guess in dating and in I guess meeting people, is it appropriate to ask people what their sign is, or do you get to know them first and then find out their sign? Because one of the things, and this is I've only really dated in LA, one of the things that a lot of women are accused of, myself included, is you talk to somebody for a little bit, it's like, okay, well, yeah, what's your sign? So is that something that we should do? Because I'm not an astrologist. I just know what signs I don't agree with. But now that you kind of explained it, and kind of different houses, and when you're what sign, like what month of that sign you're born in, it definitely kind of like, okay, well, maybe I should step back from like not dating a sign entirely. So what is
Oh
there
my
a
gosh.
time is there a time to ask that question, or should we wait until we get involved and then ask a professional? What's your take on
Oh
that?
my gosh. So you remind me of the meme I meant to make about red flags. Anyone
Oh
that
boy.
asks the zodiac sign on the first day, red flag. I'm gonna do it right after we get off here because I've been meaning to post that. Ladies, gentlemen, do not ask someone's their zodiac sign on the first date. Or
Ooh.
if okay, so let me take a step back. You got to know how to read energy, right? And
Hmm.
so if you're not good at reading energy and somebody's response and body language, then I would advise you to stay away from asking that question, because if someone is not into astrology, they're going to be immediately turned off. And
Right.
you want to get to know someone, you want to get a chance to know them without making preconceived judgments about who they are. And I don't think anyone wants to be judged before getting to you. Would you want someone to be like, oh, you're a Leo? Okay, no, I'm gonna be that. That doesn't feel good to even be on the other side of that. And even me as an astrologer, I still get feel a type of way when people make, oh, Taurus. I'm like, first of all, look at my whole birth chart, okay? So
I mean,
my I get it. It's fun. I trust me. I play into it. I think it's fun. I think on social media, it's fun to send around things. I think that makes it relatable, and it's the gate. Sun sign astrology is the gateway to what we call real astrology. Like, you
right.
have to start somewhere, so it's fun. But at the same time, you're playing a dangerous game, because you need to see the person's full chart to understand how their chart lays on top of yours. So there's a chart called a synastry chart, where you put two charts together and you see how the planets interact with each other. So just because your signs aren't compatible, so for you, TK, they would say for you to stay away from maybe, a water sign. So maybe they might say
Yeah,
Pisces isn't good for you,
Pisces,
you
I don't
know.
like them, and
I don't like that.
Scorpios. And mind you, both my parents and my grandmother are Pisces, but I've
Yeah.
had 3 bad experiences with Pisces men, and I'm just kind of like, I'll give you a chance, but I'm very hesitant. So
So Pisces for you, that sign is considered what's called quincunx from you. It's 5 signs away from you. It's 150-degree aspects where you don't have your mode in common or your element. So you're a fire sign. Pisces is a water sign. Water and fire, water puts out fire. And then you fixed signs like things to stay the same. Generally, Pisces are just all, it's immutable, so they're flexible. So it's hard. It's almost like you're coming from two different worlds
mhm.
in the sun sign department. And so for you, that's why you wouldn't necessarily maybe be attracted to that. And every sign has a sign that's in that location in the birth chart to them. So that makes sense. But also, what if it's a Pisces, and I think we think your moon sign is in Taurus, but let's say it's a Pisces that has a Taurus moon. You're going to have more of an understanding with this person, because your moon sign is really what I feel like you should pay attention to when it comes to your intimacy, when it comes to what your needs are, emotional needs. Your moon sign is more indicative of, how compatible you're going to be emotionally with someone. So
Right.
I feel like and you don't need your birth time to find that out, because the moon usually stays unless it's in the last degrees. Long story, but you can look that up. But basically, you don't want to rule somebody out, because what if you're compatible in all these other you know, elements, and then you just don't get along with their sun sign? So that's why I wouldn't advise making a judgment just off of that. But once you get, it's good to be aware and
Mhm.
have the awareness, because it's so easy to find someone's birthday these days, right? Like if you're on Facebook and they have it, or if they mention,
Oh
oh, my
no,
birthday's this week.
I just straight asked, so I'm gonna stop
Yeah,
doing that. I'll
I'm
it was
pretty
meant
sure
if
I asked. I think I used, when I was like dating for the short time. I'm sure I did, but I read the room. Like, like if it was the guy that I knew was more open-minded, and then I would go there. But it's definitely not something I think you should come right off the bat and just ask, because they're gonna be
I
like,
mean,
what?
I wait for like 20-30 minutes, but yeah. Yeah, okay. This was meant to be. I will retire that question. Um,
Yeah.
so with that being said, is it beneficial? Because I think we're in this time, especially after the pandemic, or wherever we are in this moment, because we're not, the normal is
We're not
relative now.
out.
I know we're not out, we're not in, I don't know. But especially after we were trapped in for so long, I think a lot of us a lot of us had this self-discovery, self-awareness journey, all this stuff. And I think a lot of people, myself included, came out of it a better person, because I've actually put in a lot of work. So do you
Mhm.
think that knowing, the rising and the sun and all this other stuff is going to be a good addition into you improving yourself?
Absolutely. I think the more you know yourself, the better you are. And not just knowing, but actually being aware, self-awareness is the first step, but taking actions to work against the things you don't like is taking it further. And so, there's a lot of people that aren't self-aware in the world, and they're just going around and they're acting. We all know them. They're just
Mm-hmm.
acting and they're pissing people off, and they're not, taking responsibility. I think your birth chart allows you to get yourself, you sit with it and you get to know yourself on an intimate level where you can see how you're showing up in the world and affecting other people. And that's something that's priceless, because you can correct that, right? So, for instance, I have a lot of fixed energy in my chart. It's mostly earth and water. I'm very someone stuck in my ways. I'm very determined. And, but I have an Aries Venus,
Mm-hmm.
and so Venus and Aries is fire. That's someone that can come across as very, me focused. And I have Mars in the first house. And so when I was able to really reflect where I was struggling in the past, it wasn't my romantic relationships. And that, I've
Mm-hmm.
always been in committed relationships, but there would be these quarrels or fights and competition, and that was the Mars on my Venus, really not being in a partner, competing with your partner. You shouldn't compete with your partner, right? And so when I was able, it took me a while, even though I've been studying astrology for so long, when I really got to a point where I was like, what am I doing? How am I showing up? Because you can't always blame it on the other person.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It helped me so much. And not that I don't still have that in me, but I was able to attract a partner that, our birth charts are very compatible, and nothing's ever going to be perfect. But my husband, I'm able to be soft with him, and I don't have to fight him. We're on the same team. We work together. And so I feel like me having my chart, me obviously having his chart, I know how to, work with that better, to where we have a better, relationship. And it's not always going to be perfect, but it just helps.
Yeah. So it's advisable to, do that in your self-discovery journey.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would see a professional astrologer. A lot of the what's on the internet, you can Google, Mars and Aries, or, Venus and Pisces, but
Right.
it's only going to be general. It won't be tailored to your actual chart. So you always want to take it one step further. It's good to have like a general, at least I recommend everyone at least once in their life have a natal chart reading. So they have like, what are your cards you were dealt? What are you here to do? Who are you?
Mm,
How are you showing up in the world? So you have a good baseline. That's the first thing, and then you can kind of read and learn more, because it's more about, how are you showing up, and it's a different tool than therapy. It's a different tool than, I don't know, meditation, because it's about the personality. You know what I mean? And I've always been into, psychology and what makes people tick. And so
right.
anyone that is into sociology or anything like that, I feel like astrology would be interesting.
Okay. Well, that's the kind of perfect segue. So for y'all who need to get your, I want to say get your life together, but it's not even getting your life together. But for y'all who are
No.
really, yeah, like interested, and then I just think it's just another layer. Like I don't think it can't hurt knowing all
Yeah.
these little things. And where can people find you to get that?
Yes.
Because like I said, definitely, and you said it. Well, I personally think definitely going to somebody who you know, even though certification is, some people aren't, some people are, I prefer it's like, okay, well, you took that extra step, and that makes me feel,
Hmm.
safe that like there's building blocks around this. So
Hmm.
certified, that I think this is where people should come. So where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me at astrofashionista.com. So that's astro and then fashionista, just the two words. And then that's my handle everywhere. So Instagram
Nice
is
and
probably
easy.
where I'm most active. Yeah, exactly. And I also have, I work in product development, and I have for, over 10 years. So I have a brand called Gift of the Nile, and it's based on ancient Egyptian astrology. They're in metaphysics. So aromatherapy is a big part of it. So that is thegiftofthenile.com. So those are luxury products for spiritual wellness. So those are the best two places to find me.
There it is. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's, I don't want to say it's like LA, but it's like I feel like, now we just add some feng shui and, life coaching, and I think we're all good. But I definitely need to book a point with you, because yeah, maybe I'm treading too hard on the Leo love. So maybe I'll add some stuff to it. But
Yeah,
there's
it's so
definitely,
insightful.
it is. It definitely is, especially kind of like knowing that, because I have one of my best friends, I saw him in San Diego. He's a Leo, but he's also dating a Leo, but they're further
Oh,
along in the month. And it's just kind of like, oh, I can, now that you said that, I'm like, oh, okay, now that makes a little bit more sense if you're kind of closer to Virgo versus, you know, my other best friend who's a Leo, she's in July, she's slightly different too. However, we have a lot of commonalities. So it's like
yeah.
interesting that you said that. And then, you know, my takeaways, maybe that should be the end of every episode now. My two takeaways is don't judge a book by its cover. And then also don't ask somebody on the get-go what their sign is. It
Yeah.
might be beneficial for everybody involved.
Totally.
There it is. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I love learning new stuff. Definitely go and check out Tamerri. Other than that, my name is TK Trinidad. You can find me on everything at TK Trinidad. Till next time, guys. Ciao.
TK Trinidad, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Hey, TK Trinidad, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.